If even Maomao could tell that the accessory lacked something, then the far more perceptive and far less quiescent Hongniang would never have stayed quiet about it. Maom wondered what outfit Jayukayu had been wearing to complement this accessory. We had the craftsman make this on rather short notice, but it was a fine piece of work. It has dark patches now, but it was flawless when we first got it. There used to be a decoration on that charm. It was about half the size of the little basket. A decoration, Maomao asked. Perhaps it was some sort of gemstone. It would certainly look striking there. Perhaps it would even make a tinkling sound like a bell when the Empress walked. If I may say so, it doesn't appear to be there anymore. The mesh of the basket was fine enough that she doubted the stone had simply fallen out. Jayukayu said, "I wore this with my first outfit at the garden party. I left my seat just before noon to change clothes, and that was when I discovered it was missing." Maomao didn't say anything immediately. There had not been a change of clothing during the garden party at the rear palace. Regardless, not many people could have approached the high ladies. Perhaps only their attendants. Might one of the ladies in waiting around you have had sticky fingers? Maomao ventured. Not one of Empress Jayukayu's own servants, of course, but perhaps one of the women who had come to serve the meal. Jayukayu shook her head, but it was Hongniang who spoke up. To be honest, we would be less worried if it had simply been stolen. This hair stick was among the gifts offered to Her Majesty today. If they were very lucky, that meant the thief had a change of heart and decided to return it. But then the thief would need to be quite lucky to tuck the item in among tribute intended for the Empress. Not likely, huh? This meant it was a threat. The message said, "I can get close to you. I can even sneak things into your palace." As a consort in the rear palace, Jayukayu had been the target of more than one attempted poisoning by other women. Now she was the mother of the crown prince and lived in her own palace. That should have taken her further from danger, but then this happened. You can come back anytime you feel like it. It was an offer Maomao had been given more than once. It was an invitation to come back and work for Jayukayu again. She realized now a little late that it wasn't only their personal connection that had prompted the Empress to make the suggestion. "Maomao," Empress Jayukayu asked, "do you think you might be able to find the culprit?" There was a smile on her face, but it seemed uneasy. Her hands shook visibly. Maomao had always thought of Jayukayu as a very carefree person. In the rear palace, any woman who received His Majesty's imperial affections faced brutal reprisals from her fellow women. Yet Jayukayu had never stopped smiling. She maintained a childlike curiosity about the world. This, combined with her personal toughness, had led Maomao to assume she would be perfectly fine without her. But perhaps I was wrong. She was the Empress, the mother of the nation, but she was still a human being. Maomao was in a room within the Empress's palace, looking at the hair stick. It was late when they finished their conversation, so she had been ordered to stay the night. She was told her dormitory had been informed. She was served dinner in her room. She was still a little surprised. Her dorm was less than 30 minutes away. Staying out all night was one thing, but an outsider staying the night at the Empress's palace had to be a real nightmare. She guesses she won't feel safe until she finds out what is behind this hair stick. However, was Maomao truly the only one the Empress could trust with this matter? Or was there another reason? Maomao sat on the bed in the room prepared for her and folded her arms. Splotched silver. Silver corroded easily. It was quick to cloud up if you did not take proper care of it. It had to be polished constantly. Nonetheless, the nobility liked using silver tableware, or perhaps more accurately, they had to use it. Silver also fogged when exposed to arsenic. Arsenic had no flavor, no smell, and not even any color. However, thanks to a unique property of silver, it was easy to detect. One might say people in high places could not afford not to use it. Had Empress Jayukayu been exposed to arsenic in some way? No, it was not likely. Despite her mood, she seemed to be in good physical health. She showed no signs of having been poisoned. But then what had happened to the hair stick? Perhaps it had corroded after it was stolen. Maybe someone had tried to poison the Empress and failed, so they stole the hair stick instead to blackmail her. No, Maomao decided. It was too complicated. If there was some intention here, Maomao could not fathom what it was. What could the thief be after? There was something else that bothered her too. Hongniang had said there was supposed to be a large crystal inside, but it was now nowhere to be found. A crystal. Maomao gave the hair stick a gentle shake. She did not expect the stone to fall out from a hidden crack, but to her surprise a small white granule landed on her skirt. What is this? She picked it up and squinted at it. She tried sniffing it. Silently she got some water and a hand rag, then placed the particle on her tongue. Hey, she had just caught the taste of it when there was a knock at the door. Maomao, do you have a second? It was Yinghua of all people. Yes, what's the matter? Normally Yinghua might have shown up to chat or to gossip, but today she did not look in the mood. Maomao was glad to see her. She had something she wanted to ask. About the hair stick, Yinghua said. She looked uncomfortable, but her timing was perfect for Maomao. The crystal that was mounted in this hair stick. Is there any chance she thought back to something she'd made when she served at the Jade Pavilion? Was it a salt crystal? They were white lumps, salty to the taste. She had made several of notable size while at the Jade Pavilion. She gave the best ones to then consort Gyokyu. If you did not know what they were made of, you would have sworn they were real crystal. She had kept them secret from Hongniang, so the chief lady-in-waiting did not know about them. Yinghua looked surprised for a second, but then she nodded. Very nice, Maomao, I'm impressed you figured it out. So I guessed right. She picked up the hair stick with the cloth and gave it a shake. What I don't understand is, why mount a chunk of salt in a hair stick? It was only ever going to break apart and fall out. She had warned Gyokyu when she gave her the salt crystals that they would melt if they were kept anywhere too humid. Maomao had given the lady some charcoal to act as a desiccant, but salt was salt, no matter how pretty it looked. Lady Gyokyu had been so bored lately. She thought she could at least entertain herself at the garden party. So Empress Gyokyu had been the mastermind behind this. Of course, she hadn't told her respectable chief lady-in-waiting. Maomao could understand why Yinghua seemed uneasy. She wondered what Yinghua planned to do if the crystal broke during the garden party. These events were times when the women carefully assessed each other, from their hair to their toes. When she had been at the rear palace, many middle and lower consorts imitated whatever Gyokyu did. They did this in an effort to earn the emperor's interest. No doubt many still would. An empty ornament on her hair stick would be humiliating. That is why she planned to change clothes. She thought the outfit would last an hour before she changed. The hair stick's lantern shape was striking and unique. It would draw everyone's attention. They would all be asking what stone was in the ornament. This was especially true of the women helping with the banquet. Ladies sought His Majesty's affections not only within the rear palace. Perhaps Gyokyu enjoyed baffling those around her. She knew they were pondering what kind of stone she had used and where she found it. Or perhaps she savoured the thrill of not quite knowing what she would do if the stone broke, while she was in such distinguished and vicious company. It was very much Gyokyu-ish, Maomao had to admit, but it was also dangerous. Could the lady-in-waiting assigned to keep watch on the hair sticks have taken it? Maomao asked herself. It was certainly possible. If the woman had only taken it and then had a change of heart or felt a sudden fear and returned it, it would be a relief. But returning the hair stick was not so simple. Would you mind if I asked you what the surroundings were like at the garden party? Maomao said to Yinghua. I'm not sure what you mean. I mean the seating arrangement, for example, and how things were happening behind the scenes. I see. Yinghua left the room and returned with paper and some writing utensils. She sketched a quick diagram of the banquet. This is the center of the feast where His Majesty was seated. To his left was the Lady Empress Dowager and Master Jin, which means the Moon Prince. Lady Gyokyu was to his right. Master Gyokyu was a little ways away. He is still technically just a local governor, so he was given a place equivalent to a prime minister. A local governor is someone who ruled one of the provinces. Essentially, Gyokyu was in charge of the entirety of Li's western reaches, centered around the western capital. A little bit of that studying had stuck with Maomao. The prime minister's seat was currently vacant. There had been some expectation that Jinshi would take it now that Shishu no longer occupied it, but he had been given a different rank. The seating arrangement was reasonable enough, considering that one of the major objectives of this party was to give Gyokyu his name, which of course would be accompanied by a promotion in prominence. And where did Lady Jaikayu change clothes? The banquet was close to her palace this time, so she just went there. There was a bathroom there as well, so it was easier on the ladies than before. That was quite a distance from the kitchen though. Maomao knew the food always cooled off while it was being checked for poison. It must have been especially cold having to carry food for so many people that far. She always thought it was a waste, those fine flavors disappearing with the chill. Yinghua said they put a big pot here by the palace and made a mark on her map. Maomao studied it for a second. Was there a guard by it? Yinghua said, I don't think so. It was probably the food for people without seats. The food for the people who needed their meals to be checked for poison would be staged elsewhere. And did the hair stick disappear while that pot was present? Yes, that is right. It disappeared right in the middle of the meal. I was sent to take care of something, so I left Lady Jaikayu for a little while. When I returned, everyone was in a tizzy about the hair stick. Ah, so that is what is going on here. Maomao looked at the hair stick. It made sense now. She knew where the discolorations had come from. You look like you have an idea, Maomao. Do I? You totally do. What is it? Tell me. That was a tricky request. She could not prove it yet. So far it was all assumptions. I don't have enough information. Sure you do, tell me. Yinghua pressed. Maomao groaned, but she knew that continuing to refuse wouldn't make Yinghua any less vehement. All right, she relented. But I want to check one more thing first. What is it? I want to know what is going on right away. I'm afraid you will have to wait. I don't want to say the wrong thing and confuse the Empress. Yinghua puffed out her cheeks, but she was forced to accept that. Do you know who was in the palace during that time? It does not matter if you are not sure about everyone who was there. Just let me know who you are aware of. Okay, well, she started giving names and Maomao wrote them all down. It might be misleading to say she had solved the mystery, but she had a good idea where the hair stick had disappeared to. That poses a problem of its own, though. Between the information Yinghua had given her and Maomao's own guesses, things were pointing in a very fishy direction. She wanted to set Empress Jaikayu's mind at ease. However, she wasn't sure if she should tell her the whole truth. She worried that doing so might only upset her more. How do I tell her? Maomao was just mulling over the question when there was a knock at her door. Who is it this time? She opened the door to find Hakuyu. What's the matter? Maomao asked. It's a little chilly, Hakuyu said. I thought you might be cold, so I brought you an extra blanket. Thank you very much. I'll take it from here. No, today you are a guest. Hakuyu showed herself to be every bit as diligent as she looked. She came in and made sure the blanket was arranged just so on Maomao's bed. Maomao stood by the window and watched, feeling a little funny. She glanced out between the window slats and saw that it was snowing. I guess it really is cold, she said. Next, Hakuyu added some coals to the brazier. Would you like any incense? She asked. No, thank you. Hakuyu was clearly very good at her job, but Maomao didn't feel there was any special need for her to do everything for her. As she remembered, Jaikayu had known Hakuyu since her youth in the western capital. She had not been here very long, but Yinghua and the other women Maomao had known since her time in the Jade Pavilion seemed to respect her. She could have sent someone a little lower down the ladder. Certainly not. You are far too important a visitor. We wouldn't risk anything being done less than properly, said Hakuyu. Oops. Had Maomao said that out loud, she squeezed her mouth shut to stop anything else from getting out. These people don't quite make sense to me, Maomao thought. Aside from Sekiyu, who was the youngest, Maomao did not truly know what the sisters were like. She had seen them teasing their little sister, but only a little. Maomao quietly watched Hakuyu work for another moment. Then, she took out the notes she had made during her conversation with Yinghua. She was glad she had kept them close. She wouldn't have wanted Hakuyu asking any questions if she had noticed them. Maomao resolved to go to sleep early tonight, but her heart was racing. Sleep isn't very restorative when you have something on your mind. Maomao rubbed her tired eyes and sat up. She was glad Hakuyu had brought the extra blanket. Her breath fogged in the morning air and her ears were red. When she opened the window, she found snow had accumulated on the ground outside. She shivered as she changed into her day clothes. No sooner had she gotten dressed than she heard a voice from the hallway. Maomao, let's have breakfast. It was Yinghua, bright and early. Maomao decided to take her up on that. Gyuan and Alan were also at breakfast. Gyuan did not seem to have changed much, except perhaps she was a little plumper than before. She was still gentle and easygoing. Alan appeared to have continued growing. Maomao had to look up even higher than usual to meet her eyes. It was enough to inspire jealousy in Maomao, who was not very tall. Still, she could not help smiling a little to be back among such familiar faces. Yinghua announced that breakfast was extra special today. There was dried abalone, the others chorused wow, even Maomao was moved to applaud. Perhaps she had taken it from the remaining ingredients for Empress Jayukayu's dinner last night. The soup was simple, with good stock and only a faint hint of salt. However, with the abalone in it, it proved quite edible. The rice was also the best quality, showing that when a woman became empress, her ladies' diets improved as a result. As the four of them chatted, Maomao looked around. Gyuan asked what is wrong. She had noticed her restless demeanor. Nothing really. Do the others have breakfast, though? She did not see the Yu siblings or the other new ladies in waiting that Jayukayu must have accumulated upon becoming empress. Oh, Miss Hakuyu and her sisters eat in another room. The other ladies in waiting do not eat in the palace at all. Alan added, yeah. It is too bad. This would be a good chance to get to know them. They are always so serious at work. I think it is more that you three are a bit lax. Still, that made it easy to be around them. Yinghua and her cohort had served Jayukayu for a long time, since her days as a consort in the rear palace. However, Hakuyu's acquaintance with the empress went even further back. This must have been why Gyuan felt obliged to refer to her respectfully. Hakuyu may not have been considered as important as Hongyang, the chief lady-in-waiting, but Maomao felt she still held a position above Yinghua and the others, perhaps even more so than during Maomao's last visit. Yinghua and her friends were known to challenge the ladies-in-waiting of other consorts. They did so only if someone spoke poorly of Jayukayu. Hakuyu and her sisters were companions and colleagues. Maomao doubted Yinghua or the other girls felt any real hostility toward them. Speaking of Yinghua, she asked, so Maomao, do you know who the culprit is yet? It is a little tricky, Maomao said. A neat way to dodge the question. The other girls looked deflated. Yinghua suggested, if you haven't figured it out yet, Maomao, you could come back here. She continued, we probably cannot convince them to let us have you just to make medicines and stuff, but if there was some sort of reason, Gyuan added, that's right. We have many more rooms now than we did at the Jade Pavilion, and there are plenty of stoves. I bet you could get your hands on some imported medicines here, Alan offered. Imported medicines? Maomao very nearly jumped at that opportunity. No, bad Maomao, she took a sip of her tea to calm herself. I am learning my craft from my father and the other doctors right now. I cannot just switch jobs. Imagine the burden it would put on the people I am working with. She freely admitted that the idea of serving Empress Jayukayu had its attractions. But joining the great lady's staff would bring its own problems. Consider that freak. What if the strategist with the monocle started lurking around the Empress's palace? He would believe he was simply trying to see Maomao, but onlookers would see something else. Surely Empress Jayukayu knew about the relationship between Maomao and the strategist by now, didn't she? He believes it's all a delusion and that we are complete strangers. To be quite blunt, Maomao wondered if there had been some mistake. Perhaps she wasn't the offspring of another patron of the Verdigris house. At least that's what she liked to think. She knew the chances were slim. Things would have been much easier if Jayukayu had simply viewed Maomao as a pawn to be used. However, she had genuine regard for Maomao's abilities. She could not just ignore her. Not to mention that the gazes of Yinghua, Gyuan and Alan were practically burning a hole in Maomao at that moment. She was just trying to decide how she could get out of this situation when a young woman with a red hairband came in. She resembled Hakuyu quite a bit, but her face showed she was a little younger around Maomao's age. She was the youngest of the three sisters and the only one Maomao really knew. She used to deliver Xirolan's letters. What's up, Sekiyu? Yinghua asked. Empress Jayukayu is asking for Maomao, she answered simply. Maomao finished her breakfast and picked up her bowl. Don't worry, I'll get it. Just leave it there, Gyuan said. So Maomao did. Yinghua called, can't wait to hear when you'll be joining us. All three of the young women waved encouragingly. Maomao offered a bow in return, then went to see the Empress. In Jaikai's room, Maomao found Hongniang and Hakuyu. She also found the prince and princess. The princess was arranging many toys around the crown prince. He was mostly ignoring them. Perhaps she believed they were all playing together. When Hakuyu noticed Maomao had arrived, she lifted the crown prince. "Sekiyu, this is the princess," she announced. "Yes, certainly," Sekiyu responded, taking Lingli's hand. "Play more," the princess requested. She was approximately 3 years old now and clearly learning how to speak. She did not seem to remember Maomao, studying her face as if seeing her for the first time. Maomao was a little disappointed by that, but it was what it was. She gave the princess a friendly wave. Hakuyu was about to leave with the prince in her arms when Maomao impulsively grabbed her sleeve.